Berchtesgaden in Bavaria. In the darkest corners of Bavaria is the oldest ice track on the planet, opened 51 years ago in 1969. Imagine what cars, never mind sleds, look like then. Welcome to Berchtesgaden, to Königssee, everybody, for the 6th race in the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Martin Haven, and alongside me, Elizabeth Meyer. Liz, this track, the oldest in the business, everybody knows it, but it is a real driver's track. Where are we going to see the mistakes coming in here?
Definitely, it's very much a driver's track. There's a really short start here, and then it goes down a little bit, it flattens, and then it drops a little bit more, and you'll head into this really short track. You're trying to get as much speed as possible from the start, of course, and you're heading into curve 1, which sets you up for the S curves, and that's where you really want to generate speed. You're going to see sleds getting close to the roof and dropping and diving out of these S curves into S2, into S3, and into S4, where the first speed trap we'll see, into the bend away, which is kind of like a fake straightaway. You see the sliders tapping on ideally just the left side, setting them up for Jenner, and into Kreisel, which is a big 360 degrees-ish curve. You'll see the sleds dropping and rising and coming out into what we call the doodles. You see athletes potentially tapping on the sides into Kalschein, C-curve, Echo Wand, which are all named after the mountains that are surrounding this area, into the curve without a name, and then finally into Zeal curve, which is the finishing curve. It's a really short track, and which makes it unique as a driver's track.
Yeah, 1,300 meters with that Kreisel, and as you say, 360 degrees corkscrew turn really fires you down into those lower labyrinth corners. Jacqueline Learning, our World Cup points leader, has won the last 3 races here, including the World Championships in 2017. So is she our favourite? Well, she might well be, but so might the woman who won both races in the 15-16 season, Tina Hermann. They were exactly tied to the 100th in the final training day yesterday. So Tina Hermann, Jacqueline Learning, and who else? Well, history teaches us Janine Flock's got a very good chance here. Maybe Anna Fernstedt, who grew up on this track. Another wild card, maybe, Belgian Kim Meilmans, because she grew up on this track as well. She's never been outside the top 8, has never had a podium. Let's see what she can do. And the Russians, the fast starts here, they know the track well. Megan Henry maybe got her first ever World Cup medal last weekend, but if Jacqueline Learning doesn't win, it'll be because it is by a couple of hundred. So there's a lot to look at. The Russian girls all should start fast, but they've all been sick, done very little training, so we'll have to see how that works. Well, we have 24 sleds in our field, so the fast 20 go through into Heat 2. We'll start with Australia's Jackie Narracott, and the final sled on ice will be Kimberly Bos of the Netherlands, who is not only injured, but also now has the lurgy as well. So she can't run, and she's coughing up a lung. Do not make her laugh. It's not funny. And just before her, Leslie Stratton, who'll be in the booth later on today to call the men's race. Race 6 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. We're in Königssee in Bavaria. Jackie Narracott of Australia just about to get us underway. Martin Haven and Elizabeth Meyer watching the action.
With John Farrow and also an Australian coaching her, which is kind of cool to see. Ooh, a little bit of a pull out of the groove and skidding. Perhaps because she's the first one off, there's a little bit of slicker than she'd be used to on the ice from the spurts from before.
Boyfriend Dom Parsons, the Olympic bronze medalist from Pyeongchang, also here today.
Husband
Indeed, yes.
You can see her dropping that right toe, trying to stop those skids in the bend away. Dropping that toe in the first pressure of Kreisel, just trying to make sure you're not getting too much height there. Really nice exit.
Out of the Echo corner here, you go quite a long way uphill, don't you? So any touches here are going to take speed out of the sled.
A little bit of a tap there on the Zeal curve, just trying to tuck for the finish line.
Yeah, John Farrow's been coaching the Canadian athletes in North America's Cup all season. So he's now joined the World Cup Tour. A number of the athletes here this weekend, and she's very disappointed with that hit on the wall right from the start. Some of the athletes here this weekend will also be going to the Intercontinental Cup races in Pyeongchang.
There's Eric Bernotis grabbing the sled for her, also coaching. Just coming out of the groove. Sometimes Königsee's a little bit tricky with the grooves, and they're pointed maybe the wrong way, and being the first athlete on ice, it may have just sent her just not exactly where she was expecting. Coming out of Kreisel here, she's got good control of the sled, and it just pushes her a little bit to that left doodle as she heads into that curve.
Yeah, so just skidding away there, but that problem at the start may be a real issue for her as we get towards filling up the top 20. Yulia Kanakina of Russia trained yesterday, but that was the only day on ice for her this week. The rest of it huddled up under a blanket, shivering and coughing. So maybe not expecting quite the top draw start that she'd normally produce.
A little bit of a slip there on the start as she was loading onto the sled. Again, a quick start from the Russians is what we expect. You can also see the sled kind of moving underneath her, and that's the same kind of skidding that we saw from Jackie Naricott. So maybe the ice is a little bit harder than what these girls were used to in training.
It's been quite cold every night. Clear nights means lots of frost and fog here, but the ice has stayed cold and hard and fast. 107.3, and that is 1.5 kilometers nearly down on Jackie Naricott's speed.
Drops out of Kreisel just a bit too soon and is fighting off those walls.
But you know what it's like when you're trying to fight a real stuffed up head and trying to focus. She drops behind, long skid uphill.
Just doesn't have the speed that Jackie Naricott did at the bottom of the track.
She's nearly 4 Ks down in terms of speed, 53.28. I think she might be heading back under the duvet fairly quickly, actually. She may not make a second heat. It's been a bit of an up and down season for Kanakina. 16th and 15th in North America, 19th in Winterberg, only just made the cut. She was 10th in La Plania, but missed the cut last week in Innsbruck.
Really good height here in the S-curves, which helps accelerate her down to the bend away. Little bit of a flop, actually, as she heads into S4. And coming out of Kreisel, you can see both toes trying to stay off that wall. Kreisel is really difficult here because it's a blind exit, so you're kind of just guessing and going off of feeling when you're dropping into those doodles.
Coaches are telling me Kreisel's cut a bit open this year, making it a little easier for Skeleton to get off, but it's a nightmare, the bobsleds. None of the bobsled drivers, even the Germans, can figure out the Kreisel. Well, struggling in practice all week has been Kelly Delka of Puerto Rico, 31-year-old in her 4th World Cup. She was saying after yesterday's runs, I was 2 seconds quicker the last time I was here on my old Bromley sled. And sometimes changing equipment, it takes time to get used to it.
Definitely, and so she's on a Schneider sled, as are the Russians, and they're a lot more stiff than the Bromleys, so it's harder to get height into the S-curves. You've really got to fight it. It's just a bit trickier, it's just a bit different.
It's so frustrating when you know what you can be doing and it's just not happening. She just couldn't stop the sled skidding away under her. 107.7, that's good speed, that's better than Kanakina.
Really nice exit there.
Yeah. Do you know what, that might be the best exit and through the lower labyrinth that she's had. 1900s back. She should be ahead of Yulia Kanakina at the line.
Just kind of bleeding a little bit of speed. Maybe there's some more skidding than we're not seeing.
All right, 3rd place at the moment, 53.39. She's in that moment where she can't figure out the wood from the trees. And it is very frustrating, isn't it?
Definitely, and especially switching through equipment. You might not have the right setup that you had on your last sled. Definitely be scratching your head a little bit.
Well,
coming off of S4, pointed towards that right wall, you need to take that tap on the slider's left-hand side to set you up nicely for Jenner, but you're also fighting at the rest of the bend away. Good timing on the toe. Maybe needs to be a little bit more to keep the sled a little bit more parallel. Dropping out of Kreisel, you can see her head rising and the toes tapping behind her. If she's had some struggling exits there in training, that makes sense why that's what we're seeing her form.
Well, she's come with the game face on, and we'll see if she makes it into the second heat. There may be a few struggling here. There were quite a few perplexed faces after training. Mimi Reneva perhaps might have been one of them. She hasn't always had the strongest of histories here. Best here was in the World Cup in 2017. She was 4th, 8th in the World Championships later on that season.
Mimi's also a quick starter, tying what Yulia Kanakina was able to do. She's got a really aerodynamic position. Her shoulders are completely melded into the sled. Toes are together. Head is nice and low.
Long skid there. You can see it's still very skiddy for everybody coming off the S-curves.
I'm going to go with the ice maybe has changed for these athletes because I know Mimi likes to have a controlled setup, so it may just be a bit different.
They're also a little later than they were training, and yesterday was a lot more fog and cloud around.
It's the highest speed that we've seen at the bottom of the track here, keeping it nice and parallel.
Big lead, 1:05.5, 2 kilometers an hour quicker than Jackie Narracott. So Mimi Reneva into the lead, 51.75. Now, can she claim another World Cup medal here? Mimi with 3 wins, 8 other World Cup medals. Eric Bonotis running in to help with the sled.
Coming off of S4, she gets a little bit of pressure towards the slider's right side, and that's where that skid comes from. Takes the tap where you want to take, dropping out of Kreisel just a little bit too soon. And she's able to luckily dodge that left wall as she heads towards the doodles.
Yeah, clips her with the right shoulder though, and you know when you're coming down through there, you're coming out very fast indeed into those walls. So Mimi Reneva, our leader, 4 down, 20 to go. Next up is Marina Gilardoni. Marina in her 65th World Cup start as a skeleton athlete, having started World Cups as a bobsled brakewoman before, 32 years old. She's had 3 bronze medals in her career, 2 of which have come in Königssee in 2015 and 16.
She came into the sport as this rocket of a starter and has been struggling with injuries for the last 3 years, probably. Now she's starting to get the start back, and her driving has come a long ways after switching equipment last season.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? You know, you sacrifice a season effectively changing a sled. 110.1, just a whisker behind Mimi Reneva in terms of speed. Oh, big hits down into the doodles, the low labyrinth.
Isn't able to control that and is taking the 2 taps.
She'll still see her second at the line. There's nearly 9 tenths from first to second. Most of the field will fit in there. At least half of them, probably. And 3900's back, 52.14. And imagine driving your car, you know, if you hit an ice bank, you know it's going to slow you down as well as do damage, but that's exactly what happens to your sled.
Definitely. When you have to drop your toes, you're starting to create drag on the sled. It is going to slow you down, but it is necessary in corners like Kreisel. But it is a bit tricky if you have to drag them more than you'd like to.
And that big hit on the shoulder out of Kreisel into the first wall.
Here she is loading onto her sled, trying to load with your knees first to accelerate the sled as much as possible forward. Nice and settled, head low, having to drop that left toe to make sure she's not getting that pull over that Jacqueline Narracott did. Lots of height on the exit of Kreisel. You can see her trying to fix it with her toes as she's heading through those doodles. Able to save it that she doesn't take that final tap on the left side.
Mimi Reneva, Marina Gilardoni, Jackie Narracott, the top 3. Next up, local girl Anna Fehn-Stettever learned to slide here at this track when she was at school here in Viesturs, slid originally for Germany. This is her 6th World Cup start for the Czech Republic. Good recent experience here, winning the Junior Worlds in 2019.
Anna's not known for her starts here, but she is an incredible pilot. She's starting to learn her Willi Schneider sled after switching last year. It's her 3rd sled in 3 years. Really nice line out of S4. A bit of a skid, but it's not like we've seen the other athletes.
Yeah.
Shows her experience as she heads into Kreisel.
She's at a make-up speed, 110.5. That's the fastest we've seen. And a great run for it. When it works well, you just trickle through the bottom there like it's no problem.
Good speed here at the bottom of the track, dropping out of Echo.
Yeah, very good speed, quicker than anybody else. She's closing in on Mimi Reneva. How close at the line? 2900's back.
It's a bit tricky with starting 3 tenths behind Mimi. She's got a huge advantage from there, or disadvantage that way.
Yeah. Best result here, bronze medal in the race in 2017. Behind Jacqueline Lerling and Tina Hermann. That was the last all-German podium.
Here she is into Kreisel, a bit higher than the other girls are, and as she drops the toe here, it looks like the sled breaks out a little bit. Just a bit of a skid from maybe steering a bit too hard. And as she drops out of Kreisel, it's a beautiful line, but it could be from steering too much in Kreisel, which would be slowing her down.
And that's the difference with the Schneider sled, isn't it? That the instinctive steers that you're used to, something that's a little more flexible, are big steers when you're on a stiff sled like the Schneider. Next up is Elena Nikitina of Russia, our World Cup champion from last year. The 27-year-old is also the start record holder at 483. Sick in her bed yesterday, 484. Well, she's come out firing this morning.
Maybe being sick is the way to do it.
Well, she needed the rest, that's for sure.
Definitely one of the quickest starters. She's very experienced. She's learning to drive the sled very, very well. So not only is she a rocket at the top of the track, she's learning the composure she's needed to drive the track very well.
Yeah, she's a two-time winner this season.
A little bit loopy in Kreisel, which, if it's controlled well, it can really accelerate you. Letting gravity kind of do its work and slingshot you out.
Building her advantage, head buried there. You could hear the chin of the helmet dragging on the ice. 104 kilometers an hour, 2 Ks down on Anna Stetter, and so the gap came down by nearly 1500ths of a second. And so she's 1400ths ahead of Mimi Reniva.
And it looks like she's exhausted.
Yeah, and she's still got to do another one. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
In Kreisel, she's a bit loopier than we've seen the other athletes, kind of letting the sled naturally drop and rise. You don't want to maybe see that much of it, but it does accelerate you on the exit. She's got a nice exit, pushing her close to that right wall. A little bit more would be a tap.
Just breaks into a tiny skid, but straight down the middle there. Well, again, skidding there. And slow-mo shows you so much more, doesn't it? And she would have felt all of those, even though the cameras didn't pick them up necessarily first time. So Elena Nikitin leads from Mimi Reniva and Anna Stetter. Martin Haven, and alongside me, Elizabeth Meyer, as we watch the winner last time out, 2 years ago, Jacqueline Lurling. Also the winner 3 years ago in the World Championships and in the December race here. So she's got 3 on the trot.
Big Jacker fan club out there and down at the bottom of the track. She's not known for her starts, but this season she has improved on it, and she's now become way more competitive than she has in previous seasons.
Well, you know, when she first came into the World Cup, she was, what, 17? And so still developing that athletic ability. Now 24, she's a fully fledged world champion.
Nice parallel line coming out of S4. A little bit of push away, but it's really well controlled. A little bit of an oversteer there.
Yeah, again, very skiddy on her FES sled, and again, rattles through the walls on the doodles. This is not going to be as good as her final day of training when she and Tina Hermann were the fastest, tied to the 100th.
Just gaining a little bit on Mimi Reniva, maybe at the line.
300s back, wow. They know how to find the speed here, don't they?
And definitely room for improvement for that second heat.
Yeah. Well, Nikitina gave speed away below the doodles. Jacka gave it away in the Kreisel and the doodles.
Which is unexpected for a German pilot. Nice and controlled on this first pressure, but as she drops that toe, it kind of pivots the sled, kind of like a drift that happens in a car if you pull that e-brake. Coming out of Kreisel still nicely because she does have that German experience. A small tap.
Well, how different is the track? 0.6 of a second quicker than she was in training yesterday. That's how different the track is today. And that's not just her turning on the race start. Let's see what Tina Hermann can produce. Tina Hermann, winner here in 15-16, 2 races. She's had silver medals behind Jacqueline Lurling the last 3 times out.
This is also her home track where she learned to slide. You can see her head kind of bobbing, looking for her entrance. With a skeleton sled, you steer with your head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So when you see the athlete's head moving, they are steering the sled just a little bit. Big skid there coming out of S4.
Quite run down the straight though. Let's see how she goes in the Kreisel.
Again, a little bit of a skid there, so Kreisel must be a little bit different than what these girls are used to in training.
Well, they've all been a little brave with a setup on their sleds. 1:16.1, fastest speed of all. 1500s back from 4800s back. She's going to be the leader at the line. 107.5, she is by 600s. And there are a couple of fans right beside our commentary window who just leapt up and down. I'm guessing they might be Tina Hermann fans. Shaking her head. Yeah, great.
Of course. There's always room for improvement, especially in that Kreisel section. It's not what we're used to seeing from these Germans. Yeah, solo along a little bit.
Yeah, well, nearly 7/10 quicker than her training run yesterday.
Yeah, coming out of S4, you can see her right elbow just kind of sticking out a bit and the shoulders rising off the sled, which is kind of like taking your hand off the steering wheel. Coming into Kreisel, drops that right toe and just skids it just a little bit. Coming out of Kreisel, you can see that right toe dropping to bring her back over into the doodle to stay off those walls, and then the left to kind of save it again, but still gets stuck on that left doodle.
2 wins and most recently 3 bronze medals for Tina Hermann, our current leader. Now the 10th of our sleds, Kim Marmans, silver in the Junior Worlds here last season in February.
That right spur is really kicking athletes
It
to
really
the right
is, isn't
side. It can be the way the melt happens from the sun, and it's just really difficult for the track workers to fix.
200s behind. Kim Marmans also went to school here and learned how to slide on this track.
Big skid coming out of S4, fighting off that left wall.
It's a very different looking track, I think, to one they were anticipating. 109.5, it's about 3rd best speed.
You can hear when she's in the Kreisel, you can hear her helmet dragging as well as her toes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure for the athletes to keep their head off that ice.
Got neatly through the doodles. 1:15, this is good speed.
Big skid though coming out of Echo.
Challenging fellow former German slider Anne Fehn-Stettever, and she is 6/700ths behind Anna Fehn-Stettever. So both Kim Marmans and Anna Fehn-Stettever products of the German schooling here.
So technically in the top 6 we have 4 Germans.
Yeah, well, 3 Bavarians.
Coming
Close.
out of S4, there's again that big skid. You can see her kind of trying to drop that right toe to get the sled back going straight. Nice and parallel in this first pressure. That shows her experience here. Dropping that right toe longer than we've seen other athletes, but it could be her setup as to why she needs to steer a bit longer.
5th in the World Championships here in 2017. She's not been out of the top 8. 10 sleds down, 14 to go. Tina Hermann, Elena Nikitina, Jacqueline Lurling are top 3 ahead of Mimi Reneva. Race 6 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Martin Haven alongside me. Elizabeth Meyer as Kendall Wessenberg gets ready to take to the ice for Team USA. She'll be in the booth for the men's race a little later, so she will be able to tell us exactly what is going on with this ice today.
You can see at the top of the track, it's still shiny, and that's 10 sliders in, still holding the spritz, which is the water they spray before the start of the race.
Kendall really controlled that bump out of the spur very well.
Really relaxed, nice aerodynamic form going into S1.
Best result here, 6th place in 2015-16.
Just staying off that left wall as it pushes her into Jenner.
110.0, good speed into the Kreisel. A lot of work going on in the middle pressure.
Kreisels are very difficult for North American sliders. You don't have the tricky ones that the Germans do here.
Last week's Kreisel in Innsbruck was a left-hand turn. This week's is a right-hand turn. 104.8, losing speed to the Germans. 8th place, 52.3. Well, top 10 finish would be her best result in Europe so far this season if she can get one. Ahead of Jackie Narracott by 0.4 of a second. At the moment, Kelly Delka, Yulia Kanakina, Jackie Narracott, 11th, 10th and 9th.
Coming out of S4, she's fighting off that right wall. puts her into a little bit of a skid. See the toes kind of tapping behind her to prevent that a little bit. And here's the Kreisel, where you can see her drop that big left toe, right toe. It doesn't really stop her, and then dropping both on the exit to try to get that clean line out.
Well, avoids the painful hits in the lower labyrinth, but a bit of skidding. Kendall Westenberg currently in 8th place. Weighing the athlete and the sled. And at the top of the track, our most recent medalist for Team USA, Megan Henry, bronze medal last week in Innsbruck. And you'll see in a moment why part of that came about, a 5:06 getaway.
You can see her head just leaning and her toe dropping as she gets out of the groove to stay away from that pull that's been happening.
Smallest athlete in the field, pushing the heaviest sled as a result, because you want to have the sled and the athlete to maximum weight.
Which does help when the track's a bit skiddier, because your sled just weighs a little bit more than everyone else's.
All right, 1:10.1, very good speed so far from Megan Henry. She's still in the lead, but this is where the Germans race away with it. Not a bad run through the labyrinth. Is this going to be top 3, top 4 for Megan Henry? Full of confidence after last weekend, 2400s back.
You can hear her toes dropping just a little bit, trying to keep control.
5th of the line, 51.98. That's a good first run.
Really good run by her. A little bit of skidding, but we're seeing that from every single athlete, so.
Yeah. So she was last here in the Intercontinental Cup in 2016, the second tier of sliding.
Toes dancing behind her just to keep control of the sled. A little bit more height in the second pressure than we've seen any of the other athletes. With a looser sled like a Bromley that's a bit more flexible, you are going to get more height in Kreisels and high pressure corners. Dropping out of Kreisel very nicely. Needing to fight off that left wall just a little bit.
Yeah, swinging from the hips just to nudge the sled away. Megan Henry lies in 5th position. Well, now here is a regular medal collector from this track, Janine Flock of Austria. 30 years old now, 6 wins, 17 World Cup medals, including silver, 13 and 14, and bronze, 2017-18, our last race here.
Just leaning away from that wall. Nice and composed on the sled. When you grow up in Innsbruck and Eagles, you need to have great form. She's on an MCR sled. There's only 2 in competition, her and Sammy Meyer on them, created by Matthias, her coach, Clemens, and Rat Gerber, her sponsor.
Now she's been doing a lot of steering down a straight in training to avoid the big hits on the walls, and she manages to avoid the skids as well.
A little bit of extra height in that second pressure.
1:10.8 was a kilometre an hour down on Jacqueline Lurling. 1:16.3, quicker than Tina Hermann. She's closing them down at the line. 1500s back. Needs to be clean here. And at the line, she is in 4th place, 1600s back. Jacqueline Lurling, 900s back. Elena Nikitina, 600s back from leader Tina Hermann. So she is definitely in the mix for the medals.
There's a couple little skids there, but there was nothing blaring in her run where you think she might need to improve on. A little bit of issues in Kreisel, but her experience shows here that she's completely relaxed on the sled. A bit of a skid there after her first tap, but you're right, she is driving away, trying to stay off those walls.
I was watching her down the bend away in training yesterday, doing just the same.
Lucky ducky, just staying away from that right wall as she drops out of Kreisel.
Luck or judgment?
Yes, true experience. I won't call it luck.
No, absolutely. Well, if you do it right, we'll call it luck, shall we?
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
all right then.
Please do.
Right, making a mental note for next year.
Yep.
Okie dokie. So next up, after Janine Flock, Maddie Smith, sort of at the opposite end of the experience scale. This is Janine's 79th World Cup. It's Maddie's 15th. Now, she did race here in the last outing that we had 2 seasons ago. She was 22nd. That was only her 3rd World Cup race at that stage.
There's a big changeover in the Brits this year. Changeover in staff, changeover in coaching. So there's a little bit of growing pains that these athletes are dealing with. We're seeing some great results, some track records, and some struggling to get second runs.
Maddie here, Kimberly Murray in the ICC in Lake Placid this weekend.
Nice and parallel coming out of S4.
Really nice, 300s up in the lead. This race, 2 years ago, is the only time in her career she's missed the cut, so she wants to do a lot better than that, and currently she is. Ooh, gets a couple of early hits, but it's still a top 10 run.
She appears to have a lot more control than we've seen the other athletes, as I say that, a skid happens.
Well, is that the nature of the Blackrock sled that the Brits are using? Let's see, across the line, 11th place. Well, she's already 11 spots better than she was in her first race here in World Cup.
But maybe her setup, because it does appear she has more control, it's not accelerating like the other athletes, the other girls that have a bit looser setup.
Just cutting a bit too much ice, maybe.
Coming out of Kreisel from a lot of height, but she's dropping that left toe to prevent an even bigger hit on her right side. A double tap there. It's really hard to get back on your line as you head into Jenner if you've taken those taps. But her feet are back together as she heads into that curve.
Well, even in slow motion, it only takes a fraction of a second. You're just flying past those walls or into them. Next up for Canada is Jane Channel. Jane's 44th World Cup start. To 6 positions here are her best Königssee results. And your former teammate, or your teammate when you're current, yes, that's true. So where are her strengths on this track?
Jane is an incredible starter. She has been dealing with a bit of an injury from the summer, starting to get control of that again, but 94,
wow.
Second fastest starter we've seen. Nice and relaxed here. Her first ever World Cup was in Königssee. She's back on her Bromley sled from a Dukers last year, trying to get back in the flow with it.
2900s up, that's the biggest lead we've seen so far, but she pinballs all the way down through Jenner and into the Kreisel.
Just a bit down on speed when we've seen the other athletes.
Doodles are not treating her well either. So she'll be doing well to hold a top 10 finish at the line. 1:10.7, 6 kilometers an hour down.
You see her head just peeking up on these kind of blind exit curves.
52.62. Well, that was a run of 2 halves, wasn't it? Good down the bend away, and then the Kreisel, Jenner curve, just ended up throwing her down into the lower labyrinth all over the place.
It's a little bit tricky because the bumpers, the bumpers of her sled stick out further than your body, so it's kind of a different view than you're used to. So she gets stuck on that right side, and it throws her to the left just before Jenner. And into Kreisel, because she's on a Bromley sled, it's a little bit more flexible, so you're gonna get that height in comparison to stiffer equipment. Big height on the exit. It's able to prevent the bigger hits with dropping her toes.
I saw the ice flying off the Kreisel, though. She steered hard down. Saw Christian Auer in the background there. Tina Hermann, the leader, from Elena Nikitina, Jacqueline Lurling. And next up, Germany's third slider, Sophia Griebel. 38th World Cup start for Sophia. 5th here in the World Champs, has not been outside the top 6 since 2013.
One of the veterans on this track, definitely has the German knowledge, knows where to find the speed, and knows a good setup for here for equipment.
She didn't quite have the speed of her 2 teammates in training, but she certainly was enjoying her days on the ice.
Yes, last week, because she was sick, was sent home to get healthy so she could race in this race.
100th up, but a skid down the bend away leaves her a few hundreds behind.
A nice swooping line on the exit of Kreisel, beautiful through the doodles, keeping it nice and straight.
So how close will she be? 1800s back, 1:15 to 1:16.
Just a bit of a skid there as you're starting to go uphill.
That's not bad at all. 6th position, 51.94. So that leaves her 400s ahead of Megan Henry and a 10th ahead of Anna Kleinstetter.
Especially starting so late. She's 16th off. The track will have died just a little bit. Spritz is worn off, but she's got a big smile on the exit. taking that tap, puts her into a skid. Her shoulders are coming off the sled a little bit too, so she's not quite as relaxed as she could be. Leaning away from that slider's right wall. Nice and composed as she heads into Yenner. Beautiful doodles. Into Echo Wand, which is a very high pressure curve. You start to go uphill.
Yeah, right up there in the frost. So Tina Herman, Elena Nikitina, Jacqueline Lurling still our top three. 17th sled on the ice, Laura Dees of Great Britain. Coach Mareks with the sled. Not sure where Queenie, the team duck, is this morning. I'm sure we'll see her at some stage. Resplendent in lilac. What about Laura Dees? What can she produce here? Now, one of the few athletes to use the left groove as the athletes look at it.
But the way it looked, it was a nice exit out of the groove, maybe a little bit of a toe tap, but definitely more manageable than that right spur. Nice lines here through the S curves. Really leaning away from that wall, taking her shoulders off the sled.
Tap dancing all the way down the straight into the Yenner curve, 108.9 to 111.6 of Lurling.
Big toe steer there. Is able to control it through the doodles, even with a bit of a dropout out of Kreisel.
112.6 to 116.3 of Janine Flock, the fastest speed there, and she's 4.5 Ks down at the line. And that is going to leave her in 13th place, 52.49. And that's sort of where our Olympic bronze medalists' season has been. 10th and 21st in Lake Placid, 13th, 11th and 19th in Winterberg, La Plagne and Innsbruck.
Yeah, it's not quite what we're used to seeing from Laura. You see her dropping that left toe there. Our shoes have a plastic toe cover on there to protect us as we drop our toes, so we can steer hard with them. You can see her not quite comfortable on the sled, elbows kind of sticking out, and you can see a gap almost between her and her sled as well.
Yeah. Well, there's Laura Dees, currently in 13th place, behind teammate Maddie Smith by 600ths. Next up is Savannah Graybill, the 31-year-old from the USA, 32nd World Cup start. Best here in World Cup, 13th place, but was here in the Intercontinental Cup in December and finished on the podium. Back to that left spur, and it is starting to straight out with all the sleds that have gone through it. I think Jackie Narracott gave everybody the warning.
All the athletes are prepared. There's a little bit of a curse sometimes going early in the start list.
We'd hope that the jury would ensure that the forerunners go from both spurs, so you get at least a view of it. Savannah just can't get the sled straight down the bend away.
See, her elbow was just sticking out there, trying to lean away from those walls. Nice exit out of Kreisel, steering maybe a little bit too much and just bleeding a bit of speed.
16th at the start. She's driving herself a little higher up the order. This could be a top 12 run. This could be a top 10 run. 105.2 is decent speed. Where's she going to end up? 11th place. And that's a 10th behind Marina Gilardoni. So out driving her start. That's a good run from Savannah Graybill.
Big smile from her coaches.
Yeah.
She may not be the strongest on the start, but she is an incredible driver.
She's ahead of teammate Kendall Wessenberg by 0.06 of a second.
Coming out of S4, it appeared you have to lean to hit that wall to get a nice setup into Yenner, so it's a bit counterintuitive to be aiming to hit a wall, but it is necessary on this track. Big fall out of Yenner as she heads into Kreisel.
So there is Savannah Graybill down and done for the first of our two heats. Next up, our 19th starter, 25th World Cup start for Renata Kutsina. She probably hasn't felt more grim at any of them. Talking to her yesterday, and she's saying, yeah, everybody's just feeling really, really unwell. Amazingly, the coaches haven't caught her yet. It's just all the athletes.
And the Germans were sick last week. It's really difficult on tour. Once someone gets sick, it usually visits everybody.
I'm saying Savannah Graybill was racing here in the ICC in December. She wasn't. It was Renata who was here in ICC, took a medal in 3rd place. She then go to North America at the start of the season.
It's here steering towards that wall like we talked about with Savannah. Nice entry into Kreisel.
Not bad speed either. Is she going to hang on in the top 12? Ooh, long skid off the Kreisel.
Able to fix it in the doodles and keep it relatively parallel.
Could be closing in on the top 10 at the line. 1:05.0. The speed is just ebbing out of the sled, and at the line another 11th. 52.21, 300ths faster than Savannah Graybill. Off a start that was 700ths faster. You can see her puffing and panting, just trying to catch her breath.
Into Kreisel, letting it rise on that first pressure, dropping that right toe. Getting close to and her left toe. Kind of a little bit of tap dancing.
And steering up with the head while she's dragging the left toe as well.
Bit of a skid there, and then she's able to keep it back to parallel.
Looking nice and relaxed. A damper on the sled to stop it chattering around, but yeah, not feeling the best. Well, next up is a World Cup rookie, 19 years old, from Domodossola in the just north of Lake Maggiore in the Italian Alps. A former skier who started skeleton at 15, as early as she was allowed. She did the Junior Worlds here. She was 7th in the Intercontinental Cup race here in December, and a 5:09 getaway for Alessia Kripa. You can see why they are keen to get her into the World Cup, can't you?
Definitely. These Italian athletes, it's cool to see some more coming through the ranks. Quick starters, learning how to drive these tracks. Big skid there.
She lacks nothing in bravery, not the tallest of the athletes on tour, but only in her 4th year of sliding.
There's always those nerves with it being your first World Cup out.
Look at that, I tell you what, never mind debut, that looked like she's been down here hundreds of times. 1:10.5, very good speed as well.
The Italians spent quite a bit of time here at the start of the season.
Okay, 19th place, 53.37. Will she make the cut? She may do. She's behind Yulia Kanakina, but she is ahead of Kelly Delka of Puerto Rico. Well, still very, very new to this.
Coming out of S4 here, you can see a bit of a skid already. Really pushes towards that slider's right, bumping again on the left. And it's hard sometimes to get the sled back into control once the skids do start.
Yeah, broke into a skid a second time before she finally had to drop anchor and straighten it up with the toe drag. There is our World Cup rookie, Alessia Kripa. We have 20 sleds down, 4 to go. Tina Herman, Elena Nikitina, Jacqueline Lurling, the top 3, unlikely to be challenged now. So go fast or go ho time now for Lin Wai Yung of China. Her beg your pardon, for Maddie Charney of Great Britain, of Canada. Her 9th World Cup.
It's her first World Cup here in Königssee.
Yeah. Been once before on ICC. 5:16, that's a good solid start.
Looks to be nice and relaxed on the sled.
It really does. Got to carry big height here in these S-curves, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to be nice and brave trying to take it to the roof. Bit of a tap there on the slider's right side.
At the moment, comfortably in the race, if that's not the curse of the commentator. 109.2, 110 would be good. Whoa!
Big skids there on the exit of Kreisel. With it being only her 2nd trip here, it is difficult to master that Kreisel.
Yeah, sorry, Maddie. May have talked you out of the race, and a hit as we start to go uphill as well. Through 17 and 18, a long way shy. 19th place, she is in ahead of Alessia Kripa, and Kelly Delka does not get a second heat for Puerto Rico. Spoke too soon, saying that she was getting nicely on with it, and then that huge skid. Big smile on her face as ever.
Nice apparel in that first pressure of Kreisel, but as she drops that toe, she gets a little bit higher than she would have liked to. Big drop, and now both toes are dragging, trying to save that exit, but it puts her into a really big skid. With her head that high, she's taken the hands off the steering wheel, feet are flying behind her, just trying to get back control of the sled.
So Maddie Charney is in the race at the moment with 2 sleds behind her. Now, what about Lin Weiyang of China? Her 6th World Cup. Did the European Cup here and Junior Worlds in February 2019. Whoa! Yikes. So much for that left-hand groove being a lot safer.
For being a relatively new slider, she's got a lot of knowledge, a lot of relaxedness on her sled as well. Really difficult to get control of that sled once the skids start happening, and that's where that speed has gone.
Yeah, and now she's got much less speed than she needs in the Kreisel to really hold the line. Mistakes just catch up with you, don't they? They follow you all the way down the track.
Once you're offline, it's really difficult to try to bring it back.
World Cup best last weekend, 16th place in Innsbruck. Heads buried, but it's not going to be enough. She does not get a second heat either. Penny Schneider looking a little bit disappointed with that. Probably not as disappointed as Lin will be.
It's really hard to get control of that sled once it's a little bit off. And she's such a small athlete.
Yeah.
Really quick load onto the sled. She looks comfortable, but that groove just spits her really hard to that right-hand wall of the slider.
Such a big hit as well.
Coming out of S4, just a bit too much pressure. You can see her trying to save it with that right toe. And she's just not cooperating with her. Drops out of Kreisel really soon. A lot of pressure still left in that curve, and that's what brings her over to that left side.
She's way below all the other runner marks. Just didn't have the speed to hold that height at the end. Well, next up, Leslie Stratton from Sweden. 5th World Cup for Leslie. European Cup race here in December 2018, her last appearance here. Gets settled early, but again, she gets kicked out. She was possibly waiting for it, I think.
It's really tricky as the sun changes here that the groove does change the way it spits athletes out. Nice and high in S2 there and S3.
Again, one of the slighter athletes, so she's possibly more likely to get spat out of the groove. Tap dancing down the straight to try and set it up for Jena curve.
Big toe steers there, Kreisel. It is difficult being here when you haven't been here a lot, trying to get to know where you are in these curves.
A real driver's track, really tough to learn. It seems so simple, but every corner is tricky. And at the line, she is in 18th place. She's in. And our rookie Alessia Kripper is out. Kelly Delke is out. Lin Weiyang is out as well. So Leslie will get a second heat. Greg West can start breathing again back home. Good morning. Good. She's going to be talking bobsleigh with us tomorrow as well.
Coming out of S4 here. Pushes her a bit towards that right wall, dropping that right toe so she doesn't get an aggressive cross towards that wall. Lots of toe tapping here in Kreisel. Doesn't quite get the sled angle change that she would like in that second pressure, so she has to fight it in the third. She better remember some more English than that when she's in the booth later on tomorrow. Next up, our final slider, Kimberly Bos of the Netherlands. Again, as we said last week, not only injured, but also now really not well at all. And she is just desperately trying to earn the points to keep the Netherlands spot for the World Cup next year, and also to try and earn a place for the World Championships. Again, in that left groove, she knew it was coming, but it's just too vicious to fight. And it is really hard when you're struggling with an injury, you're sick, and then you hop on the sled and something like that happens.
Best race for Kim here, 14th in the World Championships, 15th here in Europa Cup in 2013 in a bobsleigh.
Really fighting off those walls, bit of skids.
Kimberly started as a bobsled driver. In her last Europa Cup race, she beat Anne van Nieuwenhuis, Misha McNeil and Germany's Sandra Kroll. Kroll is coaching bobsled here this weekend, but at the moment, I think Kimberly is just surviving this one. At the line. She's going to have to survive another one. Well, Kristen Bromley, a bit comme ci, comme ça, but genuinely, I'm not sure that she was expecting to make the race. The expectation is just to start and get the points. She will go again. Phil Sill runs up to help.
Coming out of S4, the big skids. I think the athletes, the ice is just a lot different than it was in training. Big drop out of Kreisel, leaning away from that right wall. Bit of tape flying off her sled.
Yeah, tape doesn't stick well at sub-zero, does it? No.
Some big taps there. She has room for improvement.
Yeah.
Looks to be a little bit in pain.
Not feeling overjoyed with having to do all that again, possibly, but, you know, that's the way it is. At the other end of the scale, our leader after the first of our two heats is Tina Hermann of Germany. Elena Nikitina, 600s behind her. Jacqueline Lerling, the winner for the last 3 races here, is third, 900s back. Well, Tina not perfect. Nobody had a perfect first run. So Elizabeth Meyer, they're going to have to go back and fettle the sleds and think about their lines. Well, here's what it looks like. Medals are going to come from the top 5, aren't they? I think Sophia Griebel probably too far behind unless she has some assistance from in front. Megan Henry 7th, Anna Fehn-Stettever ahead of Kim Marmons, both Bavarian sliding products, and Marina Gilardoni rounding out the top 10. We can see further down the order, Jackie Narracott is in the race, so is Leslie Stratton, Kimberly Boss and Yulia Kanakina. Again, possibly not overjoyed, she's got to go again. She could probably have done with wrapping up warm and going home. But missing the cut, I'm afraid, Maddie Charney, Alessia Cripper, Kelly Delka and Lin Wei Yang. Well, that's it for the first of our 2 heats. Join us as the sleds come back on ice. 1300 local, 1200 Greenwich Mean Time. Elizabeth Meyer, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew trackside here in Königssee to see who's going to win our 6th race of the year.